Hey guys, welcome to the We Need to Calm Down podcast. I'm Devon.
And I'm Joe.
And this is the show where we talk about all things Taylor Swift.
That's right. This is a show where Taylor Swift continues to put out content faster than we can work on it.
Yeah.
Frustrating.
She does that to us. But yeah, we'll be discussing everything from song breakdowns, Taylor news, and our insane fan theories.
I think my favorite thing is there's a script that I'm supposed to follow in our intro, and every single time I ad-lib and throw you off.
Just like, and okay.
Like you have something you expect I'm going to say, and I just go off the rails. So something fun happened to me last night in that I fell in love.
Oh, can't relate, but continue.
No, I was like scrolling through YouTube trying to find something to like watch before I go to bed, and I saw a video. It was Halsey and Kelsey Ballerini on CMT Crossroads covering or singing, I guess, Without Me, and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. So I watched it, and I fell in love with Kelsey Ballerini. My God, she is amazing.
She's so cute. Yeah,
she is adorable.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it was. Like, I've listened to a couple of her songs. Like, I know, like, Yeah Boy, what's the love story one? I Hate Love Songs, like, all of those.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I never, like, actually saw her. Like, I didn't know, like, aside from, like, her album cover, but I never, like, saw who she was. And seeing her perform, it was just so much fun. I got a 7-day trial to Fubo, whatever it is, so I could go on CMT and watch the full episode because they do like behind the scenes where they talk to each other and like talk about their relationship. And Halsey and Kelsey Ballerini are like amazing friendship goals. Like they go like drunk karaoke all the time together. Like, oh, it's so adorable. And like I learned a lot of new songs from her. What was it? Miss Me More, Peter Pan, like
Peter
all
Pan's
of these.
a good one.
It was. I remember seeing her perform it with Lucas Graham, or at least hearing that, like him doing 7 years, her doing Peter Pan, and I didn't care because I guess I didn't like the way that it was done. But when she did it with, like, she put out a guitar, she looks so cool. Oh,
do you know the relationship between like Kelsey Ballerini and Taylor Swift?
Is there a relationship between Kelsey Ballerini and Taylor Swift?
Kelsey Ballerini credits Taylor Swift as giving her the inspiration to move to Taylor Swift. Move to Taylor Swift. I'm dead. Move to Nashville to like pursue her career.
And it all comes full circle.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
Yeah, she had an interview and she's like, I grew up loving music, but I never knew you could just choose to be a singer like that. And she just decided to work in the industry as a songwriter and then perform. But they have a bunch of pictures together. They're really cute. Country girls, we love it.
She really does embody it. But like Halsey said, like a really good thing in her interview, and we'll have to do an episode on the Taylor Swift Crossroads episode that they did. I don't know if you know about that one, but it is a trip. It came out in 2008. No, but Halsey was saying, like, with Kelsey Ballerini, the two don't seem like they're that similar. But Halsey was like, I think if you stripped out all of the production from either of our songs, like threw them all in a hat, like Homecoming Queen or Colors or something along those lines, threw them all in a hat with no production, pulled them out, you wouldn't be able to tell who wrote what. If you didn't know obviously if you didn't know the artists or the songs. And I haven't done any research into that, but it's from what I heard in the lyrics that I was listening to with Peter Pan, all that stuff, I can easily see it. And I love that idea. I love that idea of like artists, like they're in two completely different genres, but at the core of it, the songs are still the same. It's just the production is what makes it different. I think that's interesting. It's something I never thought of with country.
Yeah, well, welcome to the Kelsey Ballerini bandwagon train. I've been on it since a couple years. I
had no idea you liked her.
Yeah, I saw her in concert. Well, she played at my old venue. But,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. But she's fantastic. I mean, I wasn't into country besides like Taylor Swift until I dated my ex sophomore year of college, and I had a playlist like country songs I could tolerate, and it was just Wagon Wheel. That was the only playlist.
I did the only song. Thing. because my ex like would always listen to 92.5, and I was like, this sucks. And then like Sam Hunt came on, and I was like, okay, I can deal with this. This is pretty
Yep.
good. And
Sam
yeah,
Hunt and Zach Brown band are like what helped ease me in. And then like Kelsey Ballerina, I'm like, she's great. And then obviously this came later, but Casey Musgraves, I'm like, all right. Country
I
pop, I've always been a fan of.
I'm starting to get into it. I'm really excited about it. But the one thing that did depress me heavily was I was watching this concert, and I was like, gosh, I can't believe I haven't seen Halsey yet, and I need to go see Kelsey Ballerini now. Oh wait, I can't.
I don't want to talk about
And
it.
I'm so sad now.
I had a breakdown earlier about that. I'm like, everything sucks right now. It's fine.
Anyways, what are
Yeah.
we talking about on this typical Tuesday night?
So there's another chapter, the Sleepless Nights chapter. So just after midnight on August 24th, Taylor continued to insult us with more content and more things to go crazy over. She released the second chapter, Sleepless Nights, and she continues to not take our release schedule into account and has already released the third chapter, which negates our ability to speculate on the next chapter, but that doesn't stop us from diving in to Sleepless Nights.
Yeah, I think we were texting at like midnight when this thing came
Mm-hmm.
out, and I sent it to you, and you were like, "Wait, is that real?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, it's real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're going." But I
It,
go ahead.
I was going to say it's interesting that we both just did not get the next two chapters right at
Mm-mm.
all in terms of
Nope.
like, yeah, it has to be some big concept like escapism. And she's just like, sleepless nights.
To be fair, Sleepless Nights, maybe I think someone could have gotten. If anyone guessed, guys, I think the third chapter is going to be Saltbox House.
Oh my
Hear me
God.
out. That person is just Taylor Swift's alt account posting on Reddit. That's all that is.
Yeah.
No one could have possibly assumed that the third chapter was going to be Saltbox House.
No.
But we will talk about Saltbox House next week. We are going to talk specifically Sleepless Nights. So we did get one answer uh, immediately from this one, in that we will have at least one repeat if these three chapters prove to be the only ones. But the Spotify release consists of the following 6 songs in the following order: Exile, Hoax, My Tears Ricochet, Illicit Affairs, This Is Me Trying, and Mad Woman. Which is this is such an interesting conglomeration of songs.
Yes. I didn't like with escapism, there's like a concept to it, and you're like, okay, escapism, I know what that means. It makes sense. With Sleepless Nights, it's more of an abstract concept where you really had to think about it. And it's like, okay, like what does sleepless nights mean? I'm assuming it's just, laying in bed and you can't sleep and like you're just mulling over these thoughts. But honestly, one of my predictions, I think, was reflection. But a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
songs do reflect, but I think that Sleepless Nights and reflection, the concepts kind of tie in together.
I think they're pretty similar. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's not too hard to draw an invisible string between the two. I think that's the second
Same
time I got
joke.
that joke.
Mm-hmm.
I think for Sleepless Nights, it is interesting because I do feel like Taylor Swift has, like, a lot of her songs are Sleepless Nights, like
Mm-hmm.
throughout her entire discography, from Death by a Thousand Cuts to Forever and Always, like Last Kiss, like all of these songs, like you could pull Sleepless Nights out of it. But I think
Yeah.
I didn't, when I actually sat down and like started trying to piece it together. What I did for this record is kind of what I did for the last one, where we kind of broke it down into, okay, escapism from what, and I kind of wrote down, like, all right, well, exile is what is the cause of the sleepless nights in
Mm-hmm.
this song.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting when I did that, like, it it gave me a new perspective for each song, and it gave me like a reason for these songs and why she's sleepless.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I noticed immediately, I will say, I didn't pay attention to this or Saltbox House. Like, I haven't sat down and just listened to them in this order a lot, like the same way I do with Escapism.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's so interesting because it's giving me new perspectives on these songs, going back and listening to them with the idea of sleepless nights or escapism or I guess saltbox house, but we have a lot of theories about that we're going to get into later. But it's cool because like for one, these songs and Taylor Swift songs in general always do have that era of they hit differently at different points in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And she feels like she's accelerating that. Like she's like, all right, I'm not gonna wait for you to experience some sleepless nights before you like these songs
Mm-hmm.
or before you get a new meaning of these songs. I'm gonna just rush, give you this thing, plant this idea in your head,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna experience it that way now.
It's like, hey, when you can't sleep at night, hear these stolen lullabies.
I forgot there's. So I was going through. Yeah, I left my Tears Ricochet to you because you are the residential expert on my Tears Ricochet. But when
Yes,
I
I
was going
am.
through Hoax, it says Sleepless Nights. I forgot my Tears Ricochet says Sleepless Nights in it too.
Mm-hmm.
She hit us over the head with it, and we still didn't predict it.
Nope. How could we? We just related them back to each other and we're like, there's no coincidence there, right?
Absolutely not. No, that's just cute that they both have. She's just in her album things. Yeah.
Yeah. Which will come later.
We're gonna start how we ended last episode with Exile, which is actually going to be our next episode too. I've done nothing but listen to Exile for like the last 24 hours
We
because
love it.
Exile and Kelsey Ballerini. But but it's so interesting. This is the first duplicate on the chapters,
Mm-hmm.
and we did have like a lot of point of connection. Like, is there going to be duplicates? Are we going to hear the same song multiple times? It kind of makes sense that we would. But like I said, we wanted to relate it to Sleepless Nights. So how did we? So the concept we think for this one was the song is exclusively the Sleepless Nights of Bon Iver. Nothing to do with Taylor in this song, really, or at least in this version of your listen.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly with him in the present, and how sleepless he is over the fact that this relationship is gone. What could he have done to stop it from being gone, and trying to figure out what went wrong. You could say there's some sleepless nights of Taylor, as like her past. She like went through sleepless nights in the midst of this relationship, and
Mm-hmm.
but now she's moved on. She no longer has them.
Yeah. Her story is just so much more demonstrated in escapism,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like she could have had sleepless nights over this, but really she was just like, how do I get out of this? Like, how do I leave without hurting him? And like, just like, I don't want to do it. And then she finally does. She leaves out the side door.
Mm-hmm. So the sleepless nights of someone trying to figure out where it all went wrong, I think was like the definitive, like the snappy way that we wanted to say it. Even though she gave so many signs,
So
like
many times.
so
So
many
many
times.
signs.
But yeah, I think it is fun to try to boil these songs down into one sentence of how they relate to the chapter that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the perfect one for it. Someone trying to figure out where it all went wrong. Um, you put a theory in here that
We
kind
can
of
talk about.
blew me away.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I was going to say we could talk about it later.
Oh, we can. Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if we have it later in this episode or the actual next episode, but
Yeah, they've kind of blended together talking about Exile a lot.
well,
Um,
I guess I'll touch on it really quick right now. Um, I think the reason why, and you kind of said it earlier, the reason why exile was included two times, one in each chapter, was because it's from each of their perspectives. You know, Taylor's was escapism, leaving out the side door, and Sleepless Nights is Boney Bears, and we're about to get into why.
I love that though because it makes so much sense. It's the
Mm-hmm.
only song that has two perspectives in it.
Yep.
Um, it's the only song that allows for two perspectives, and it's just like she looks at it, she's like, I have to do this twice. There's no other song that I can do twice. There's no reason to do any other song
Mm-hmm.
twice. So I'm gonna look like a fool if she releases a fourth chapter and there's a song that she did twice. But I think definitely, and it gives you two different ways to listen to the song. Like I don't when I'm listening to it on Sleepless Nights, I'm listening to one completely different side, and when I'm listening to it on Escapism, I'm hearing a completely different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I feel like I've been on both sides. Like
Oh,
I've
same.
Yeah, like I've been on the side of like I probably like there are so many signs that I was given, not just from my ex but from the world, from my friends, from signs like stop dating them and like other signs that I just couldn't see. Um and then the other side of like I tried to fix everything I could, but at the end there was nothing I could do. I just needed to leave.
Hmm.
And that just speaks to it feels like I'm trying to think of what the right analogy is. Uh, The best I can say is like a Rorschach test of like Rorschach is when they throw like a blob of ink on a paper,
Oh.
hold it up, and they say, "What do you see?"
Hmm.
And it's kind of supposed to like delve into your mind and like figure out what it is you like your subconscious thinks. I think when you listen to this song, you either err on one side or the other based on the circumstance you're in at that moment or the mindset you're in at that
Mm.
moment. And it could blow your mind to be told that there's the other side, um, which I think is really cool. Like 500 Days of Summer a little bit, where I could do a whole episode on that. We're not going to though. So the lyrics that kind of pulled out for me, and I think you said, yeah, like we could literally make the case for every lyric in this song. I think,
Yeah.
and we had a lot. But you were my town. Now I'm in exile, seeing you out. Like again, he's sleepless over the fact that he lost his town, like
Hmm.
this person who is his whole world. I couldn't turn things around. Like I know half the times I've been staying up late at night because like again, you're trying to figure out what you could have done.
Hmm.
Never gave a warning sign all this time. We always walked a very thin line. So what am I defending now? Like all of those are just along the same lines of like you're just staying up, and those are the thoughts that are going through your head.
Hmm. And I can make the case for the verses, like his first verse is him just reflecting on like, oh, I see you standing, and then just like all these things, and then the chorus comes in. He's like, oh, I've seen this before. Again, just his mind kind of like wrapping around it. And then the ending, which we're going to get into next episode, it's just so good. But he's just at the end, he's like, I couldn't turn things around. You never let me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to. And it just kind of ends with him lamenting over this. And just that's his sleepless night.
I can't believe this song has not. It just kept going down for me, and now
Mhm.
like since I've spent so much time in it, it's just started to go back up. But we're done our power ranking, so it is where it is.
We can do like a back
Do like a
into it
monthly
another.
one or
Yeah.
something. Yeah. So for Hoax is the second song, and I think what the sentence that we boiled it down to was sleepless nights from being stuck with a less than desirable person that you love too much to leave. Like you're just stuck in a relationship. You know that the relationship is either abusive, it's not what you're 100% looking for, it's not healthy. There's something about it that isn't good, or something about the person you're in love with that isn't good. But at the same time, there's no other shade of blue but you. Like I don't want happiness with someone else. I'd take misery with you over happiness with someone else.
Hmm.
Which is the most depressing thing I can possibly imagine. Um,
Sis, you good? You good?
so we said like this is Taylor lamenting the fact that regardless of how bad the relationship is, she's still drawn to it and stuck with it. And God, I know how that feels. Um, it's such a tough thing to one realize,
Hmm.
and two to come to grips with the fact that even when you do realize it, it doesn't help.
Mm-mm.
Like being told that it doesn't make you go, oh, okay, yeah, you're right, I don't love them anymore. Boom. No, like you're still like, yeah, okay, now it's even worse because I do know that this is terrible for me.
Mr. Psychology Man, what
Oh
is the
boy.
bias called? I learned about this in psych in high school. The bias when you've been with something too long and you've put too much effort into it that you don't want to
Ooh. So that is
like.
actually, I'm so happy I actually know what this is because you started this with Mr. Psychology Man. This is one of my absolute favorite concepts. It is called sunken cost fallacy.
Mm,
Or maybe not fallacy, just sunken cost. But
yeah.
basically, it was taught to me in a very like rudimentary way of, all right, so say you've had a car for 20 years. You've you've replaced the transmission at one point because it blew out. You put 4 new tires, 4 new hubcaps. You replaced all of this stuff. You sank $5,000, $10,000 into repairing this car instead of just buying a new car. And your justification is always, well, I'm so deep. Like, I put all of this money into it. It would be such a stupid thing for me to waste all of that money and not just get a new car. But at the end of the day, that money is gone. There's nothing you can do to get it back. There's no reason to continue with that and just go onto something more. And I'm going very much off of what I learned in college, haven't thought about in a little bit, but I love that idea of like, or I love thinking about that in terms of a lot of different of relationships and things like that, of like, just, you only have one life. So we know you only have one life. You only have about 70 to 90 years of that life. This is not a long time to say, well, I already spent 4, 5, 9, in the case of someone great, 9 of them with someone, and now I'm not happy. I have to stick with them anyway. I sunk so many of my years. And it's like, well, no, you still have 40, 50, 60 years left of your life. Why would you throw all of those away because you spent 9 with someone else and you're not happy? But it's hard to come over that. It's hard to rise above that. Even knowing that the fallacy exists doesn't help.
Boom. Psychology, man.
I love that so much. Oh, I love.
All right. So the next song we have is My Tears Ricochet. And we agreed that the concept is sleepless nights from mourning. And I also added that it could be sleepless nights of guilt from the other party. So
I like that.
The lyrics, I swear I loved you till my dying day. I didn't have it in myself to go with Grace, kind of like reflecting about the end of that relationship. And then the obvious lyric, and when you can't sleep at night, you hear my stolen lullabies. So I think it's about this, give and take of, Taylor, our theory is it lamenting about her discography and Big Machine Records and all of that. And it's like, sleepless nights of, oh, if I stayed, I could have my discography, but what would it cost me? And then the other side of it saying like, we have all these things and we have her money, but we don't have her. And did we make the right choice? And it's just kind of like this back and forth from both parties.
I would say, considering she released, or Big Machine released like a live video or live album, and it did absolute horribly. So I think they screwed up.
We know they did.
I think it's interesting too. I love the idea of sleepless nights from guilt from another party. I think, and I might get into this more towards the end, but I didn't see it when I first started, because I know like when we did escapism, somehow I was able to pull something to tie all of them together. And I was going through trying to find that for this one, and I kind of just did what we did for the first one and hoped that as we talked about it, it would kind of compile itself for me. And it's starting to do that, so I'm really excited about it. So I'll see if I can get that towards the end. But My Tears Ricochet, I love the idea of like it's one of those quintessential. It has very specific meaning to her, but at the same time, it's universally relatable. Exactly. Because not all of us have given our discographies to Big Machine Records, but all of us have mourned the loss of something that was very near and dear to us, whether it be a person or even just an item or something along those lines. So the next song is Illicit Affairs. Oof. I can't get over this song. I wish I ranked it higher, but it's just every time I hear it, it's so good. We boiled this one down to sleepless nights of knowingly participating in an affair. This one's a little bit longer of one that I came up with, but knowingly participating in an affair, knowing that regardless of the highs, the lows will always be there, and inescapably they will be worse. This one was really an interesting one to put in because I missed the lyric here, but I'll go through like a drug that only worked the first few hundred times. It's an affair, and specifically the one that she's talking about, is the best analogy to a drug, because you feel amazing in the moment that you're taking it, the moment that you're in the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as you come down, as soon as you're out, as soon as you're walking out of the hotel room or wherever you were, that parking lot, whatever, you feel the lowest of lows.
Mm-hmm.
Lower than the high was, but you then come back because the high, you feel like it might balance you out because you're so low, you need that high again.
And at the end of it, it says a dwindling mercurial high. It's like
Mm-hmm.
same thing with the drug. Like that first high is never going to be comparable to anything that comes afterwards. Like you
Mm-hmm.
never get that first high. It's always, afterwards you just kind of do it hoping that you will feel that way again and you never do. And it's just like an addictive
Mm-hmm.
cycle.
And you always need more and more. Like I this is a very weird tangent, but I remember hearing a story. There was a professional wrestler who took Vicodin all the
Mm,
time, and he said in an interview, he's like, there was a point that I was taking 50 Vicodin a day. And you think about that, where he's been taking it for so long and you relying on it so much that he built up a tolerance to one, which would floor me.
yeah.
One would floor me, but he built up a tolerance to one that he had to take two, and he built up a tolerance to two he had to take three, to the
Hmm.
point that he had to take 50 before he would feel anything from it.
That's insane.
And he's still alive somehow. But also, it's nuts that, like, you think about that, you can't do that with an affair.
No.
Like, there's no way you can take 50 of an affair in one day. Like, you're still stuck with that one. So no matter what, it is a dwindling feeling, and it's never going to be, you're never going to get to that point again. You can't take more of it.
No.
And I feel like an affair in other ways, if you do quote unquote take more of it, if you start having more affairs, it's gonna make you feel the low is gonna be multiplied.
Hmm.
So the lyrics we chose for this one was, but it dies, it dies, it dies a million little times. And that just refers to the same thing of just a million times. It's just gonna get worse and worse and worse and worse. Like you don't even exist was another one. I kind of tried to pick lyrics that were a little ones that we didn't talk about as much, but I like.
Yeah, I
Go
think
ahead.
that line is very sad. Like, leave the perfume on the, or like, I picked out this perfume that I think he would love, but I'm leaving it behind because I don't want to leave a trace. I don't, like, you don't even exist. And it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a sad thought that it's, you're putting yourself through this and giving yourself to someone. And it's like, you don't exist. Like, you're giving up a piece of yourself. Like, why are you doing that? And that's like the questioning of, why am I doing this?
And that's why you're up at night.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it was sleepless night. We talked about a dwindling mercurial high. The next line is and that's the thing about illicit affairs. And I like this line. We'll probably talk about it more when we get to the actual song itself in a breakdown. But it's just letting you know, like, it's literally like sleepless nights. That's the thing about illicit affairs. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's just how they are.
And she knows what it is. It's like, she's not buttering it up like it is in August, where it's like, maybe it could be more. It wasn't mine. But it's like in this story, the narrator's like, that's the thing. Like, this was an illicit affair. And I know how it ends.
Oh, the next line. I was debating adding it. I'm really glad you did.
Hmm. So just the whole bridge, but the end of it,
Oh,
her wrapping it up, and damn well for you, I would ruin myself a million little times. That's the end of the song. That's where it ends off and wraps it all up. And it's just, imagine someone just sleepless in bed at night, reflecting and like, I would do this again. I would
yep.
ruin myself for you. And just trying to come to terms with it.
Heartbreaking. And we do mention the bridge because every time we talk about illicit affairs, we have to mention that bridge.
Yes.
Arguably the best bridge on the chorus, or on the album. uh it it embodies this it feels like a sleepless night. It
Mm.
feels like you can feel the tossing and turning in bed while you're saying these words.
Yeah.
um can't speak highly enough. Can't speak highly enough. So the next song is This Is Me Trying. And I was actually this going through and reading this song through the lens of Sleepless Nights kind of changed it a lot for me. We boiled it down to sleepless nights due to personal anxiety and mental anguish.
Hmm.
But it really does come together in a personal note, there's not much of like a relationship. There's a little bit like of a mention of a relationship, but this is more of like this is a me problem kind of
Yeah.
thing, which I think is really interesting, something we don't get very often from her.
Mhm.
The lyrics we chose were I've been having a hard time adjusting right off the bat. This is about me. This is about my struggles and the things that I'm going through. They told me all of my cages were mental. See the same thing there.
Yep.
Just really tough and like very much introspective. And it's hard to be at a party when I feel like an open wound. Again, like these are all just like her struggling with her own anxiety, her depression, something like these mental illnesses that she's like dealing with on a regular. You okay?
Just like, say less.
But it's so interesting, and I never really realized it until I took the time to view it through the lens of a sleepless night. And I love, and this is where it gets interesting. Is like I love that it's a sleepless night, but it's not due to what we would immediately think a sleepless night would be about
Mhm.
with Taylor.
Yeah.
So I love that kind of stuff.
I also love that it ends with "at least I'm trying." Like she's trying to justify it at the end and trying to sleep. Like at least I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying.
Yeah, that's how she gets to bed. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then on the last track, we have Mad Woman, which I think is a very interesting addition to this one
Mm-hmm.
because I initially would never have had thought of this track as a Sleepless Nights track. But I mean, the more that I looked into it, of course, the more obviously it works. Taylor's not an idiot. Um, so I boil this one down to another rather long sentence, but a sentence nonetheless. That says, "Sleepless nights due to." Well, honestly, it's just sexism, snapping on someone for being. It feels like a very specific situation. It feels like she had someone who was acting blatantly sexist towards her, snapping on them for doing so, and then being told, "Whoa, calm down," like it was just a joke or something like along those
Mm.
lines, like belittling her anger for something like that. And I don't know about you. Obviously I've never experienced something along these lines. Like
I think the sleepless nights of anger are definitely a thing. Like I've had,
yeah, I've experienced sleepless nights of anger, but I've never experienced it under the lens of sexism and that
yeah.
kind of stuff, which I
But I
think
mean, I
is
think that concept, it could be just sleepless nights due to, anger,
mm,
and sexism is the cause of that anger. But I've definitely been in situations where I've had someone be sexist towards me and I've been mad about it the entire day, just freaking out. And then I get home and it's like you just replay that over in your head and you're like, I
mhm.
can't believe they actually said that to me. Like that's ridiculous. Like who's like this today? And it's a sleepless kind of situation,
Oh yeah,
just
100%.
mulling it over in your head and you're like, I wasn't crazy, right? Like they're not, are they gaslighting me? Like they're definitely gaslighting me.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and it's another one. Like it starts right off the bat. What did you think I'd say to that? Like
Yep.
you're immediately in the conversation. You're immediately like you don't hear it, but you know that
Mm-hmm.
something terrible was said, and you I can see her looking at him. I can see her going, what did you think?
Mm-hmm.
What was going through your head? Like what did you think would come of this? I love that.
Yeah.
Every time you call me crazy, I get more crazy. Exactly what you said. Like it compounds,
Mm-hmm.
and you just see more and more. Oh my gosh, sorry, drinking water and it's making me crazy. Um, but you see, every time you call me crazy, I get more crazy. She's just getting angrier and angrier because of it, and it's forcing her not to be able to sleep. Watching you climb over people like me, I think like that's that line. It's one of those things of I don't know when you have your sleepless nights. When I have mine, I'll be thinking about the same topic over and over again. Like why, especially in this situation, why did they say that? Why did they say that? Well, and then it just like leads to well, they said that this, and then but then they do this, and it just like tree branches out into all these different other things. And
Mm-hmm.
I think like this is that line kind of encompasses that of like God, he was so rude. He said this ridiculous thing, blah blah, and he's just climbing all over people like me, and like it just keeps going and going and
Yep.
building and building. And then they say move on, but you know I won't. Ooh,
Yeah.
I embody that entirely.
The grudges I've held. I've held a grudge for. I usually don't hold grudges, but I've held one grudge recently for like 2 years now, and then I've held another one since I was like 16, maybe 17.
This is gonna sound weird. I want to hold grudges. I think it sounds
You
romanticized to
you
me.
don't. It's like
I
it's just
don't though.
it's frustrating because I'm at a point in my life where I see these grudges and I'm like, why do I care? Like one of my grudges is I follow this person on Instagram and I purposefully don't like anything of theirs and I make it a point that I'm like I'm not gonna like any of their stuff. I need them to know that I'm not liking it. But I was like, why
Meanwhile,
do I
they don't
care?
know. They don't care.
It's like what are they like what's that gonna do? It does nothing.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
just like so deeply ingrained in me that I'm like, it's the
It's just
the
part of you.
same the same bias and it's like it's been too long to forgive someone.
Mm.
But
It's
yeah.
a little bit of a sunken cost. Yeah. So what comes next? We talked about this in the last episode. Her prologue read, "Picking up a pen is a way of my escaping into fantasy, history, and memory," which implied that there might be 4 chapters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it could hold up when she announced her 3rd chapter, Saltbox House. She did not say, "And now the final chapter."
Mm-hmm.
So that does. She specifically said the 3rd chapter, which wording wise makes it seem like there could or should be more. Because otherwise, why wouldn't she say the final?
You want to know what's crazy is now that I'm looking back on that, picking up a pen was my way of escaping into fantasy history and memory. Escaping, you could say, is escapism. History, you could potentially argue as Saltbox House, and then memory,
Mm,
you could say as Sleepless Nights because you're
that's
reflecting.
true.
So
That's
then a
true.
fourth one could potentially be fantasy, which pirates, they can be pirates. Is
Pirates.
that going to be the
Yeah,
fourth chapter?
that's
But
so interesting.
yeah.
I will say though, the only thing that does kind of go for the fact that the 3rd one was the last one is that she put a new chapter out every 3 days, the 21st, 24th, and 27th. So today we are recording this on Sunday, August 30th. But she hasn't announced it. She usually also announces it the midnight of that day.
Hmm.
So in theory, if she were going to announce a 4th chapter, it should have been today if we were going by the
Hmm.
pattern that she set. Obviously, she could go off record book. She could wait until September and post one. Um, but
She's Taylor Swift. She could do whatever the hell she
she could do
wants.
whatever she wants. But there are reasons for both parties.
Hmm.
Um, so theory. So we briefly talked about this, and I'm really glad it started coming to me as we went through. But theory regarding the order of the songs. If we go by the track listing, the order of the songs should have been Exile, My Tears Ricochet, This Is Me Trying, Illicit Affairs, Mad Woman, and then Hoax. It's interesting because, like we said, and like everyone knows who's listening to this podcast, Taylor doesn't do anything for no reason.
Mm-mm.
There is a reason she took these songs and put them in the order that she did, but I don't think she's given any like clues as to why she did. So it's up to us to try to figure it out. We already talked about the idea of Exile being a duplicate, but the fact that it's back to back is really interesting to me.
Hmm.
If you listen to these chapters in order, it does kind of give you a new track listing in a way, and it's interesting to hear that she's like trying to find new ways to like mix these songs up. But if you listen to them in order, it gives more credence to the theory of this other perspective that she's going for,
Hmm.
from the escapism to Sleepless Night. She goes, "Oh, like, okay, now listen to it again. Like, you just heard it, but now
Hmm.
listen to it again, but from this other perspective,"
Yep.
which I think is really cool and very interesting.
Hmm.
Another thing to point out, the kind of themes of these songs are, kind of go in the order of relationship, grieving, uh, which I think you added something to that. So do I miss something?
I didn't add anything.
Could be the guilt from the other party. She's still grieving, maybe kind of a relationship in My
Hmm.
Tears Ricochet. This relationship, taboo relationship again, but relationship regardless. Anxiety, depression, and anger. So it's interesting. We do get more or less 4 relationship tracks right off the bat, and then we move into the other topics of anxiety and anger.
Hmm.
Ending with Mad Woman feels very right to me. It ends with an explicit tag, ends with anger. It doesn't end with sadness, really, which I like about that. But the one thing I noticed as we were going through, It does feel so. We start on Exile, which is the I don't know what I did wrong. I don't know what my sleepless nights were. It feels like Hoax could then again be a continuation of Taylor's feelings
Mm-hmm.
during that relationship, because it's one of those, like, she is stuck in this bad relationship that she does not like, but Exile kind of is her getting away, but we just see it from another perspective, but we see these kinds of things. And then My Tears Ricochet is, it feels like it's a continuation of the story. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
feels like Exile goes into Hoax, goes into My Tears Ricochet. Illicit Affairs kind of matches with that too, because I mean, we could paint a picture of, while she was trying to break off stuff with Bon Iver, uh, she started having an affair, and that's what ended up getting to when she sees him again in the first line of Exile.
Mm-hmm.
Why he sees another guy? How did you move on
Mm.
so fast? Kind of thing, which I think is a really interesting tie-in that I didn't think about before. But it's one of those things of, like, these chapters are awesome, because, like, this Illicit Affairs, I would have never compared the affair in Illicit Affairs to what happened in Exile ever. Like, I can think of things for how they might be similar, but I would never have, like, put these stories together in those ways if it weren't for these uh playlist EPs, what however Spotify is
Yeah.
denoting them. And then you see this as me trying of her maybe trying to figure out how she feels about everything that went on with the affair, with the breakup, with the relationship, with seeing him again. And then Mad Woman could be, if we'll get into more about Exile, but what happened because of Bon Iver and what he
Mm-hmm.
said, and how he acted towards her, maybe like she was part of his property, like we said, walking over people like me, things like that. Like, obviously these songs do have their focal point meaning, I would say. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Mad Woman clearly is about Scooter Braun and Big Machine Records, as is My Tears Ricochet. But I think it's so interesting that, like, they can also just be about other things, and they
Yeah.
can tie into other things in other ways, and you can pull out little pieces and tie them, like, pull out little pieces of string, tie them together, and it works.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's interesting. Like, you see, like, another aspect of the Exile relationship continued. So
Definitely.
that's my that's my theory about the ordering of these songs.
Yeah. I mean, just like a quick little side note before we wrap it up. I think Hoax being the second song is always interesting to me because for some reason I want this album to be about like grief, like in the stages
Mm.
of grief, and Hoax seems like that acceptance part of it.
Ooh, that's good.
And so the fact that it's the second song, whereas like before it was the closer of the album, where it's like, okay, I've accepted this. Whereas now it's like, I've accepted it. But then at the end of Mad Woman, it's, they say move on, but I won't. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
just proving that, okay, I might have accepted it, but I'm not moving on.
Ooh, that's really good. I like that in the stages of grief. I wonder, we didn't do any research on it, but I wonder if
No.
that holds up. That's so interesting. I love that. I was gonna say, yeah, it is really interesting to take Hoax. We've done nothing but praise its ability to end the album,
Mm-hmm.
and to see it be taken away from that
Closing
power that it
spot.
has.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and moved not even to, like, the second to end, but, like, right up on the forefront, is definitely really interesting to think about. Um, but we would like to know, as we close, what did you guys think of Sleepless Nights so far? Did you like it better than Escapism? Do you just not care about the the order? Have you heard any? Have you thought of these songs in a different way? Anything like that? We'd love to hear your feedback. Hear what you guys are thinking about this show.
Definitely. So subscribe on whatever platform you're on. Tell a friend us about us. Rate us 5 stars. You can follow us on social media. Leave a comment, DM. We're at We Need to Calm Down Podcast or WNTCD Podcast on Twitter.
We are so close to 30 subscribers on YouTube,
I'm so nervous.
where we post an embarrassing video of Devon. So I am hype. If you haven't followed us yet on YouTube, please take the chance. You can see our beautiful faces. You can see some extra bonus content. Uh, other than that,
All right. Thank you so much. Come back. We'll be here.